Connor Zilisch undergoes surgery on his broken collarbone. Rumors suggest Heim may not return to Tricon Garage next season. And NASCAR says no penalty for Austin Hill's contact with Michael McDowell. I'll explain why that was obviously the correct call. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove midweek edition. Got some NASCAR news to discuss. Let's begin with an update from driver Connor Zilisch. Zilisch, who fell from his car in Victory Lane this past Saturday, broke his collarbone and shared this update on social media yesterday. Wanted to give everyone a quick update. Had surgery on my collarbone this morning to get a plate and screws to help with the healing process. Been a tough few days for me mentally, but all the love you guys have shown has certainly helped. Thank you. I love it, man. Ice pack on the shoulder, arm in a sling, still rocking the sponsored Red Bull cap. That is dedication. Still no official word on Connor's status for the next Xfinity Series race, which is Daytona, a week and a half away. Zilisch currently leads the Xfinity Series regular season standings with 3 races to go. I'm no doctor, but based on what I could find, a broken collarbone takes at least several weeks to fully heal. However, Zilich's teammate Shane Van Gisbergen has dealt with a broken collarbone in his racing career, and he was able to get back behind the wheel very quickly. I think no matter how Connor Zilisch is feeling, no matter how he starts to heal up, I would sit out Daytona next week. There's a high chance of crashing, and if you do crash, there's a very high chance the crash could be big. So I would sit that one out. NASCAR should grant him a playoff waiver. But if he's good to go, I would put Zilisch back in the car for Portland the week after. I've seen some in the industry this week say that, Junior Motorsports Trackhouse should keep him out of the car as long as they can. The regular season championship, that doesn't matter. Winning the Xfinity Series championship this year isn't the most important thing. You got to think about his future. And yeah, sure, you do have to think about his future. He's 19 years old. He dealt with a back injury earlier this year, now a collarbone. You don't want to rattle his cage before he goes full-time Cup Series racing. But that being said, I don't love how all this rhetoric seems to be almost devaluing the Xfinity Series. Sure, big picture, Connor's going to go Cup racing next year. He's going to hopefully chase Cup Series wins and championships for many years to come, but winning the Xfinity Series regular season title as a 19-year-old rookie, contending for the playoff championship in a few months, would be a huge deal. That does matter. It matters to the guys on his 88 Junior Motorsports team. It does matter to some degree when we talk about Connor's legacy. Look, I'm not saying they should rush him back if he's not close to 100%, but this notion that, these next few races don't matter, think of the bigger picture, I don't know. I think contending for an Xfinity Series championship as a rookie is a pretty big deal. Don't need to rush him back right away, but if he has a real shot at the regular season championship, which I think he will, even if he misses Daytona, I'd like to see him back in the car again if he's feeling up for the challenge. That's all I'm going to say. I'm glad to see that Connor is doing a bit better. Hope to see him back behind the wheel of a race car sooner rather than later. While we're on this topic, want to clear up some confusion. NASCAR Communications Director Mike Ford confirmed on the Hauler Talk podcast this week that there is no rule against drivers climbing up onto the window to celebrate a win in Victory Lane. While Ford did say that they may keep a closer eye on, how the window net is laying on the door there, he confirmed that NASCAR has, quote, not put in any policies or best practices or anything like that. So by and large, drivers are still free to climb out of the car and celebrate with their team, take photos as they wish. Just wanted to clear that up. And now while we're on the topic of officiating, I guess, NASCAR's penalty report came out this week, and there was no mention of Connor Zilisch spinning SVG in the Xfinity Series race, nor Austin Hill's contact with Michael McDowell. No call is the correct call in both instances, I believe. The Connor Zilisch deal with Shane Van Gisbergen, he just misjudged it. I think it's pretty clear that Zilisch expected SVG to leave a little bit more room for Zilisch to re-enter the racing line. SVG, who had a nose out front, obviously didn't see it that way and did not leave Zilisch a ton of room. In hindsight, I think Connor Zilisch should have ceded the position in that instance, but he forced the issue instead, quick re-entry, and clipped SVG's rear quarter panel. Their teammates, they raced each other super clean for like 10 laps before that moment. If Zilisch wanted to get payback for Chicago a few weeks back, he had a dozen opportunities before then to get it done. I don't think it was intentional. It's not like SVG ran him off track there. Zilisch just overcooked it a tad. He put himself in a tough spot and did not re-enter the racing line, I think, in a safe fashion. An accident, a misjudgment, but not an intentional malicious act. I don't think it needed a midweek penalty, nor do I believe the Austin Hill Michael McDowell hook should have been a penalty. Now, from an optics standpoint, this was a terrible, terrible move. If you're Austin Hill, you just got suspended for hooking someone, for being overly aggressive. This is your first race back. You already bumped the leader out of the way in turn 1. And then just a few laps later, you're going to try this extremely bold move in a high-speed, borderline blind corner with no spotters, cause a massive, massive pile. Yeah, it was a really bad look for Austin Hill. Poor judgment, in my opinion, but I don't think that wreck was intentional. Intent does matter. NASCAR's made that extremely clear. Was this a bold move by Austin Hill? Yes. High risk? Absolutely. Low likelihood of success? I'd say so. To me, that move just showed a lack of self-awareness, a lack of racecraft, poor decision-making, but it wasn't malicious. I don't think he intentionally wanted to make contact and wreck Michael McDowell. So I do agree with NASCAR this week. A no call is the correct call. I understand emotions were high amongst fans this weekend. The pitchforks were out, picketing outside of Welcome, North Carolina. But remember, folks, intent matters when determining penalties, suspensions, etc., etc. I do think Austin Hill, he may regret it now, but I think in the moment he was seeing red and intentionally wrecked Aric Almirola at Indy. I believe that, even if he insists otherwise. But when it comes to Watkins Glen, I do not think that was intentional. NASCAR got this no call correct, in my opinion. Moving on, we're talking about a lot of younger drivers in this show. How about Corey Heim, who will actually make his third Cup Series start of the season this weekend at Richmond Raceway? He's the Truck Series points leader. He just won the truck race at Watkins Glen, and rumors are swirling about his NASCAR future. He's been in trucks for 3 full years. He officially signed a development deal with 2311 this past offseason. That's who he's driving for in the Cup race on Sunday. And 2311 spotter Freddie Kraft mentioned on the Door Bumper Clear podcast this week that Caden Honeycutt may be in line to take Corey Heim's Truck Series ride. Kraft said, quote, "Honeycutt is signing with the Toyota team. You can probably put 2 and 2 together that he's going to be the one to replace Heim in the 11. Now that is just a rumor at this point, not the Honeycutt to Toyota. That seems all but confirmed at this point, but Honeycutt to Tricon, Honeycutt to the 11, that is just a rumor. I had the opportunity recently to interview Corey Heim for an upcoming episode of Power Hour, the podcast I do with Brennan Poole. I was able to ask Corey about how his 2026 plans were coming together, and here's some of what he had to say. The last couple weeks, there have been rumblings with Caden Honeycutt now joining Toyota for the rest of this season, I guess, and potentially going forward. There have been rumors swirling that you could be in a slightly different seat or a different situation next year. Do you know at this point what you're going to be doing next year exactly, or are planned pieces still coming together?
Yeah, everything's still kind of coming together. I feel like, for now, just kind of focused on the last of the part-time races I've got, 2311, and of course the full-time 10-year with Tricon. But everything's kind of falling into place, and I feel like I'll probably know relatively soon what I'm doing. So hopefully I have something to announce pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've been with Toyota for years, won a lot of races. I do know, though, there are fans out there that are like getting a little impatient. They're, hey, they want to see you run more Xfinity races. They want to see more Cup opportunities. Are you still comfortable so far with how your career has developed the past couple of years and going forward?
I'd say so for the most part. I feel like with my development with Toyota, they've always kind of put me in a good spot to succeed. I'm lucky to be with what I feel like is the best truck team in the garage, and I've been with them for 3 years now with a lot of opportunities to win. And yeah, I mean, I know, there are a lot of conversations about it and whatnot, but, kind of like we talked about earlier. I mean, 10 years ago, I would have dreamed to be in a position I'm in now, so yes, it's easy to get greedy when you feel like you can perform at the top level, which I feel like I can given the right opportunity. But at the same time, it's like I'm surrounded by really good people that, tell me to trust the process, and they've been telling me that since 2020. And so far, the process has been great for me. I mean, I've been able to compete for a lot of wins and win a lot of races, be with very good people that have developed me and made me better. So I'm continuing to trust that process, and I feel like sooner than later that that will pay off, and I'll be in a really good position in the Cup Series. So like I said, it's easy to get greedy, but I feel like the spot I'm in is very ideal for my future. So for me, I think it's just the best place to be in for myself.
You'll be able to hear the full interview with Corey Heim later this week on Power Hour. Episode will be on YouTube. You can also listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. Learned a lot about Heim's racing beginnings. I learned that he actually grew up a big Denny Hamlin fan, which is a pretty wild coincidence, but you heard some of his responses to my questions right there. We didn't get specifically into where or what he's going to be driving next season, but it sounds like some of his plans are starting to come together. Listening to him talk there, and I don't know what his contract looks like. Maybe he has a 5-year lifetime Toyota deal that I don't know about, but listening to him talk, I don't see Heim moving on from the Toyota system anytime soon. They've given him great equipment in ARCA, trucks. They've won a ton of races together. I just mentioned that Heim is a Denny Hamlin fan. Heim has been very patient up to this point, and it sounds like he understands that patience is eventually going to pay off. But let's assume that Corey Heim is graduating from the Truck Series after this season. Where could he go? What are some realistic potential landing places? I can think of a few. Let's start with Sam Hunt Racing, the Xfinity Series. That's a Toyota team. I'm not sure about a full-time deal. Toyota would probably have to foot like 90% of the bill. Dean Thompson is bringing a lot of money to that ride currently. I think it would take a lot of money to get Heim in a second car there full time. I'm not sure Joe Gibbs Racing is an option because they too seem to be selling their rides to drivers who bring the most money. See Brandon Jones, see William Sawalich. And am I correct that Ty Gibbs is listed as the owner of the 54? Yeah, I don't know what happens to Taylor Gray, but I don't see Heim driving that car. Forget about Xfinity for a second. We've seen Carson Hocevar, Zane Smith, Todd Gillen jump straight from trucks to Cup. Could Heim find a Cup ride next year? We know that Legacy Motor Club, Jimmy Johnson, is hell-bent on acquiring a third charter for next year. Whether that's from Rick Ware Racing, Haas Factory Team, according to recent rumors, to be determined. But Jimmy made some recent comments lately suggesting that he's not done, that he wants to keep driving. He even suggested he could share a ride with maybe a development driver. There have been some mentions of Jesse Love going there, California kid. Jimmy Johnson also from California, great prospect in his own right. But what about Corey Heim? Jesse Love is a former Toyota prospect, sure, but Heim is a current Toyota guy. Yes, he's technically a 2311 driver as far as we know, but it wouldn't be the first time a Toyota team loaned one of their drivers to a different Toyota team for a year or so. Christopher Bell spent his first year with Levine Family Racing before joining Gibbs. Eric Jones, same deal, spent a year with Furniture Row before coming in-house. So wouldn't be unheard of for 2311, let's say, to loan Corey Heim to Legacy for a year. That's possible. Now, it's less likely, but still on the table, that 2311 Toyota could loan Corey Heim to a different manufacturer. That's not very common, but it kind of happened with Chris Buescher, kind of. Remember, wasn't he sort of on loan from Roush to JTG Doherty, a Chevy team, for a year or two? And then eventually, they kind of had a trade and they brought Chris Buescher back into Roush. He won an Xfinity championship with them years before. So that's been done before, but I don't know. Would Toyota or 2311 feel all that good about Heim in a Chevy for a year or a Ford? That just wouldn't sit right with me, but maybe that's their only option. I don't know. Nothing is simple. Remember, 2311 Racing doesn't have any charters right now. How could that impact contracts? They have a trial date set for December 1st. What kind of impact could their court case have on the team's future, their current driver and sponsor agreements? It's all to be determined. So far, the team has said that Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, and Riley Herbst will be back next season, but depending on what happens in December, maybe that could change. Here's my take. This would be, I think, the ideal, realistic scenario. Corey Heim, I think he's ready to run some cup races full time. Get him in that third Legacy Motor Club seat, loan him out to Jimmy Johnson and company, help build up that young race team, stay in the Toyota family, do that for a year, and then in 2027, put Heim in the 35 car. Sorry, Riley Herbst, I was never sold on him as a legit Cup Series prospect to begin with. He's done absolutely nothing this season to change my mind. Put Heim in that third 2311 car going forward. Hopefully they have charters or some sort of new agreement with NASCAR, but again, there are so many unknowns with this race team right now. I do not envy any of these drivers who are trying to establish long-term futures. So again, full interview with Corey Heim will come out later this week on Power Hour, but wanted to share that short clip with y'all ahead of time. Little sneak preview. Where do you think Corey Heim will race next season? If not for Tricon Garage, who? Will he be in Cup? Will it be with Toyota? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, folks. Leave a like, subscribe. Really appreciate all of your support. Did y'all hear that? I just cracked my knuckle right into the microphone. Maybe it didn't pick it up. Hopefully not. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. I'll talk with you again soon. Have a great rest of your afternoon.